So the Black experience, no matter where you are, is built on a series of moments. Uh, Shani and I are recreating our moment in a coffee shop that we had a little while ago.
Yeah.
This coffee shop had walls and not a ton of people sitting in it. But this is a moment that we had. So it was based around the fact that there are more than 860,000 people in San Francisco. There are less than 50,000 Black people. So that's essentially 1 in 20, I guess.
Yeah,
So
let's say that.
if you look around right now, you probably won't see another one sitting next to you. You can take a second and look, and then turn back up here and find us.
My parents and my husband are over there.
They're in a group. They're all related to the people on the stage. So what was interesting about Shani and I connecting is that we were able to talk about these moments and able to relate to one another. So I grew up in a city in Louisiana, Alexandria, Louisiana. It's nearly 60% Black. And then I moved out here to be a food writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. Shani grew up in San Francisco, middle-class Black family. There weren't many of them. There were a lot in her family. You could think of them essentially as the Black Brady Bunch, if you want to.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn from Shani what it was like growing up in this city. And so we're going to talk about moments, and the best way to describe it is to ask Shani about a moment. So Shani, you were one of very few Black people in the city.
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard this phrase, you're Black, but you're not Black. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I've basically heard that all of my life, but there's one moment where that really, really stood out. It was my senior year in high school, and I was speaking with my academic counselor, and I was on my way to college. I was making good grades, and so she's saying, Shani, you're smart, you're driven, you're gonna go places. You're not like the rest of them. So from there, I'm thinking to myself, what does she mean by you're not like the rest of them? I hope she's not thinking what I'm thinking, you know? So I ask her, what do you mean the rest of them? Oh, the rest of the Black students that are here. And I was shocked. And I felt like I was put on the spot. I don't look at myself as higher than anyone else. And I felt that before she knew who I really was, as far as like my academic performance or what have you, that she did put me in a box. And once, she found out that I was making good grades and I was, basically on my way to college, then I'm not in the box. I'm not like the rest of the Black people, which is just very shameful.
Yeah. So it's those kind of experiences that shape who we are as a people. Who we are as individuals.
Yeah.
So for me...
Oh, and one more thing. Even with me growing up here in San Francisco, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and the neighborhood's beautiful. We have a very nice house or what have you. And me and my sisters, we would play outside sometimes in the front, and sometimes strangers would come up and say, are you lost? Like, especially if we were in front of the house, or, do you live here? Just trying to check us that way. And I felt like growing up, we were pretty much judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that makes Shani and I, this relationship interesting is because we literally switch places. I moved from the South out here. Shani at one point moved from here to the South. So each one of us found the same thing in those journeys. We found, I realized that I needed a Black community. I took the one that I had back home for granted. Shani realized she needed a Black community when she moved away from here. And Shani, what were you doing in the South and where were you?
So after high school, I attended Clark Atlanta University and I graduated from there. It's a HBCU. For those of you who don't know what a HBCU is, it's a historically Black college or university. And so, so I went down there to basically immerse myself in Black culture. I had my family here, and there's a whole bunch of us, but I felt like I needed more than that. So going down there, most of my professors were African American, and it was culture shock for me because I never really, between kindergarten and through 12th grade, I only had 2 black teachers. And I went from that to having all of my professors be black, and they have publications out, masters or higher level in education, and I'm like, wow, like this is big. And it was a very nurturing environment. The professors that were there, especially some of the old school ones, they grew up in segregation, and they were teaching us, like, you have to persist through everything. Like, I know it's a little bit easier now, but, as a black person, you're gonna be looked at differently, and you have to push through, like how I pushed through back in the 50s or the 60s, what have you. So it was a very nurturing environment. And I was in classrooms with black people from all over the world, which I never experienced. So people from Africa, people from Europe, people from the Caribbean. And we were all just motivated to get to the next level, do good in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're back in the same place.
Yeah.
Shani had that experience where she could be nurtured by a black community, understand how significant Southern comfort can be when it comes from a black community. So she moves back to a place that doesn't have that many black people. And she opens up a Jamaican restaurant. She opens up a Jamaican kiosk, which sets herself up to have a couple of awkward interactions. And so we talked about that the first time we met. And Shani, what is something really strange that happened between you and a customer?
Oh, man. Well, there's been several things. I'll just name 2 of them. The first thing was that there was this guy that came in. It was like maybe 2 days after us opening, and he said, "I want a patty, bumbaclot." And I'm like, what the heck? And my husband's like, what? What's going on? And he's from Ethiopia, so he had no idea what that meant. And I'm like, it means MFer, And I had to tell the guy, I had to be really stern with him, like, that's not how you ask for a patty here, and we're not gonna tolerate that, You just can't come up in here disrespecting us like that, And so, and there's been other things that have happened where people are like, oh, well, I want you to speak with a Jamaican accent. And I'm like, well, I'm from here. My mom's from Jamaica. I cannot speak with a Jamaican accent, because I'm not from Jamaica. I don't speak patois, but, I can understand it. But I'm not here to entertain. I'm just here to tell you about my food, But people have been persistent about that. It's like,
almost gimmicky, right?
Yeah, it's like a gimmick. Yeah. And, the next thing you know, somebody's going to probably try to ask me to sing like Bob Marley songs or something like that. Like, it has nothing to do with my business. Like, I'm there to basically promote my mom's legacy with her patties and with what she taught me with cooking.
So it made me think of a story from back home when you have a black population that's really slim in an area. My parents lived in a neighborhood that even though the city was black, there weren't many black people in it. And so my dad used to cut the grass just about every weekend. He would go outside, have a little cut-off shirt on, cut the grass. We had an older white neighbor who came across one day, didn't know he lived there, and was like, "Sir, you do a really good job on this yard."
Oh, man.
She was like, "Do you work for the people that live here?" And my dad stopped for a second and leaned over, and he was like, "I'm sleeping with the owner." So we all have these unique experiences, and I think Shani and I have more of a connection than we ever could have realized. So what we want people to walk away with from tonight is that there are culturally insensitive people everywhere. That's not
Yeah.
limited to the South. It's not limited to San Francisco. But I think we can all take a step back and do something really simple, which is understanding each other. And so when Shani and I first met, since there's 1 in 20 of us, we consider this a unicorn moment. When you see two black people talking to each other in public about issues like this, it's a unicorn moment. So
Yeah.
we recreated this for you. Are you ready to go off and be a unicorn in public again?
Yeah. Let's do
Thank
it.
you.